more than 200 FlySafair pilots are set to embark on a 2-week strike from tomorrow. Trade Union Solidarity says this comes after giving the employer a notice to strike following a deadlock in wage negotiations. Now, the union has rejected the airline's 5.7% proposed salary increase. It's demanding 10.5% for the next financial year. FlySafair has already adjusted its schedule for flights between July the 22nd and the 28th as a precautionary measure. Let's further unpack this now with aviation expert Dr. Guy Leitch on Teams for us this hour. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Leitch. So perhaps let's start here. This strike come about. We hear there were issues that were raised by the pilots around their pay and working conditions. Is this impasse likely to get resolved?
Yeah, hi, good morning to you and your listeners. Well, how did the strike come about can be traced back to COVID, in fact, for the past 5 years. The airline industry, as we all know, took a particularly hard hit during COVID with the travel restrictions. And many airlines went to the wall, including SAA and Mango, and Comair and Kulula. And pilots were let go. And pilot pay hasn't fully recovered since then. So there's a sense from the pilots that they're trying to recover lost ground and get back to at least, if not where they were, but where they were with reasonable growth since 2000. And that is half of the driver now. The other half is that FlySafair is, we must remember, a low-cost carrier, and that means it keeps its costs down as far as possible. And a major cost is actually the cost of pilots. So it has a natural tendency to try and keep its cost of pilot employment down. This leads to natural friction, and the pilots are complaining quite simply of being overworked and underpaid, particularly against their global peers, where they're saying that there's a huge temptation for them to simply go and fly for another airline in another country, but that's not what they want to do.
And here's the thing, Dr. Leitch, many other voices have also been added to this impasse now. We heard Solidarity has also mentioned what it called a tense relationship between management as well as the pilots. Just how common are such strained labor relations in the aviation industry, especially with what you just also called now low-cost airlines like FlySafair?
They are, I'm afraid, a feature of the industry. I mean, we've seen it particularly in the strife with the huge low-cost carriers like EasyJet and Ryanair in particular, where there's a continuous level of low-key warfare between the pilots and management. And that, I'm afraid, is a fairly natural state of affairs. What is unusual, though, is that the pilots actually do go on strike, because pilots are normally an incredibly responsible body of people who are, want to do the best for their airlines. Airlines are very difficult businesses to run because the profits are very small. But I mean, I think that what's aggravating the situation right now is certainly these claims by Solidarity that the two senior executives, the CEO and the CFO of the airline, are pocketing as much as 90 million rand in terms of shares that they're selling. And it's obviously very worrying that they're selling shares. It's never a good sign when senior management starts selling off shares. But then the airline's got its other problems, as we know. It's got this whole problem of its foreign ownership limitations, which it fell foul of the Air Services Licensing Council at the end of last year. That one's still not properly been solved or landed, if you like. And the airline is perceived to be arrogant. So there's this natural tension, which I'm afraid is actually just growing. It's just becoming more and more aggravated as time passes, with a one-day strike becoming a 7-day lockout and then a 14-day stay away. It's getting worse and worse.
And one can only wonder if they will be able to find some sort of common ground in all of this. Now, FlySafair initially offered a 5.7 wage increase. And on the surface, for many of us, that may seem somewhat reasonable. Just perhaps help us understand how that compares to current industry standards, balancing that off with the cost of living for pilots in South Africa, seeing that this will see the implementation of no work, no pay as well.
Well, this is, I think, the big test of commitment is the no work, no pay principle. And a lot of pilots, yes, they earn well, But many can't afford to simply take 2 weeks of no pay. I mean, lose half a month's worth of pay. Many pilots have got children at schools, they've got mortgages, car repayments, all the usual stuff. And they'll be under huge pressure to do that. That's why we've only seen as about approximately 2/3 of the pilots actually going out on strike, which has enabled the airline to continue to operate probably at around about 3/4 of its normal schedule. So it's trimmed back its schedule and should be able to operate. But those pilots who are not going out on strike can only work at an increased level for around about another 7 days or so. So the schedule will be under huge strain, as will the profits of the airline. I don't know how much longer it'll last, but certainly at this stage we're looking at the 7-day lockout as being, I think, the immediate expectation. So the whole of next week is going to be tough for people having booked on FlySafair.
And to recover from all of this, Dr. Leitch, might be just as hard as well, correct?
I don't know, because FlySafair is a privately owned airline and we just do not know what the bottom line is. We don't know how much profit it's making. There's been a suspicion that it's really been making excellent profits indeed, given the lack of competition it's had since COVID with the falling away of Kalula and Mango and British Airways, Comair as well. So it's been able to pretty much sort of match demand. And I think its yields have been very good. So there's a suspicion it's made really good money. And that suspicion is, of course, supported by the massive increase in share price and the claimed ability for the senior managers to pull out 90 million rand. That aggravates situations. It continues to damage labour relations. It'll break the sort of the natural level of good faith and trust between the pilots and coming soon too, of the cabin crew, by the way. So the airline will undoubtedly be damaged, not just financially, but in terms of labour relations by the strike.
And from a passenger safety standpoint, if some flights are still going ahead during the strike period due to maybe contingency measures, are there any risks involved in using substitute pilots or hastily organised crews?
No, there are no substitute pilots as far as I know, and there are no hastily organised crews. You can't just take pilots, from some sort of pool somewhere and stick them in your aircraft. Every airline has very much its own procedures and systems. It takes ages for a pilot to be signed out on an airline. So the only pilots that are available are those that didn't go out on strike. And obviously those are the ones that will have to double up, as it were, and share the load, which is why I mentioned that 7 days is likely to be the current length of the strike. But the fact of the matter is that they've got to make do with what they've got. And ultimately, I think the risk that they run is that if they don't meet the pilots' requirements or demands, then they're going to continue to lose pilots to other airlines, as already they've been doing over the last couple of years.
And just what does the flight schedule adjustment mean for customers?
Well, it means that you're going to have to just be really careful about making sure that your flight is going to operate, because some flights have been combined, so you could find that your flight is going to leave 2 or 3 hours later because you're now being moved on to the next flight, or else the flight has been cancelled entirely. So you need to absolutely use the airline's app and website to make sure that the flight is still going to operate. The airline, obviously has committed to putting you on the next available flight or making other alternative accommodation for you. But the fact of the matter is it's pretty much up to the passenger to make sure that his flight's going to actually be operated during this period of cutbacks.
Right, Thomas, thank you so much for your time. That was aviation expert Dr. Guy Leitch joining us there on Teams.